feeling low, but that isn't all I know. Days go slow, but the weeks go fast, and eventually it's all in the past. Time flies by when I'm feeling low, but that isn't all I know. Days go slow and the nights go slower, but look to the future and soon you'll know. Check to check, unsure what's next. Spend the days all in my head or in regret. Wish I didn't, but I do. And sometimes I let my mind drift to you. Song to song, it takes so long. I get fed up and move along. Attachment issues, can't get close. Ignore the ones who know me most. Ignore the ones who know me, but what? You block your friends on your phone and you complain how you're alone. It's all a joke. Jealousy will kill the vibe, but not yourself. We stay alive all of the time. It's kind of tiring, always trying to win and never finishing. The songs are right, I never finishing. The songs are right, I never finishing. The songs are right. Time flies by when I'm feeling low, but that isn't all I know. Days go slow, but the weeks go fast, and eventually it's all in the past. Time flies by when I'm feeling low, but that isn't all I know. Days go slow and the nights go slower, but look to the future and soon you'll know.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome all our guests and obviously the people that have tuned in here today. This will be a panel on creative artist management. And we have three guests. Amy will be joining us shortly, but it's Moody Jones and Asika as well. Moody Jones is the VP of Digital and Creative at Empire, and he specializes in marketing for music and the lifestyle industry. And he kind of helps oversee the rollout for a lot of massive acts of today, such as Tyga, Izzy, Azalea, XXXTentacion, Carnage, Snoop Dogg, and many more. Before he joined Empire, Moody helped to build two of today's top ad agency, Wavo and Everybody Knows. Everybody Knows works with multiple labels, managers, and independent artists to help break through the noise and get them the right exposure to grow their fan base. Asa started off in the business kind of running parties and clubs before being introduced into the music industry through his uncle, Obi Asika. Asa has since made his name for himself, being one of the most prolific artist managers in the world today. He's been instrumental in the success of Davido, who's a massive Afrobeats act, and has shown his entrepreneurial skills by founding Plug Entertainment, which excels in music distribution, licensing, and doing publishing for artists. They manage many African artists and talents, including Oxlade, and organize a lot of phenomenal events. So I'd just like to welcome both of you. And Amy, who is joining us as well. Hello. Amy is actually the founder and owner of Fort Williams Artist Management. She handles the worldwide career of War on Drugs, Baruch, Grizzly Bear, M Ward, Tamio, and DHD. This includes working with record labels, publishers, lawyers, publicists, film, TV, and touring. She kind of handles all these aspects of artists and has been able to create this powerhouse female-run, female staff management company that works across every aspect of artist management. So for this panel, I'd like to start off with questions individually for our three guests and then kind of open it up to the wider audience. I'd like to start with you, Moody. For you and working with Empire, what have been some of your favorite campaigns? Also, I guess everyone knows as well, what have been some of your favorite campaigns that you've worked on in the last year?
Cool. Well, what's up, y'all? Thanks for having me. Excited to join all these wonderful guests and share some experiences from our end. With regards to like some of the campaigns we worked on recently that I thought were pretty dope. I think last year, right in the middle of the pandemic, around July or something, um, we were looking to do a music video for one of our artists named her Timmy. So what we decided to do is we realized that a lot of designers had lost their jobs because of COVID. So we had like all these talented artists that could no longer get, they just don't have work anymore. Everything was kind of in a standstill. So what we did is we got 34 of them to each create 15 seconds of the video. And then we put all the videos together into one long music video. We did it in like 4 to 5 weeks. And all the money from we started a fundraiser with the music video, and all the money went to the designers. I think I checked a couple of weeks ago. I haven't checked recently, but I think we had raised $170,000. And it was literally people we had never spoken to, or we just looked for people who on LinkedIn posted that they were looking for a job all of a sudden, and we just hit them up, and everyone was happy to do it. I think off top, that was one of my favorites. I think we did one with Snoop last February, where on all his merch, if you put your phone on his merch, Snoop Dogg would come out of the shirt and
Wow.
and thank you. And the idea was Snoop Dogg had like a press talk where he said he was so grateful for everything that happened in his life, but most importantly, he was grateful for himself, and he wanted to thank himself because it was him who didn't sleep, it was him who showed up, it was him who worked his ass off. And so we thought that was really important for mental health and awareness, and just to so whenever someone bought the shirt, they can scan it, and like it would be like a thank you message for them to thank themselves for being who they are.
Love it.
I think off top, those
that's
are two
perfect.
of my favorites.
And
Yeah.
right, like you were saying, with Snoop Dogg and obviously Tiger as well, how have you been able to, in these times where you're kind of being creative and innovative is so key, how have you been able to convince them to use all of their different social platforms?
It's a good question. So, a lot of times it's like you'll have artists who like don't want to use TikTok or don't want to use Triller, or
Yeah.
just don't post, or like, and they're like, yo, your album just dropped, I'm gonna need you to say so, like you're gonna have to say your album's out somehow. I think what's important is taking all these things into consideration in your rollout. Like, hey, he's probably not going to post, or she's not really going to be into it. But the idea is like making creatives that are so dope that they can't resist but share it. So, like when we did the shirt for Snoop, for example, like he might not want to post it on TikTok, but if I like present him with this really sick video that shows him popping out and shows people reacting to it, he'll be like, okay, fine, I have to post this. And two, it's just maybe those platforms aren't the platforms for them, period. I think if you're a developing act, you should be everywhere, because you still don't know who your fan base is. And
Right.
you need to have as much content as possible and be talking to as many people as possible. But once you're a developed act, you have the luxury of being like, nah, this isn't the platform for me. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Or this is the only kind of people I want to talk to. But yeah, I think like it's important to consider that in your rollouts.
Great. Thank you. Amy, I'd just love to go to you for the next question. And looking at your company, it has such a large roster of artists. How do you kind of manage the different needs and levels of success of each artist in your roster?
You try to grow them all. I think everyone would agree with that. You try to grow them all. And then you have the luxury of, oh my gosh, all my bands are famous. I mean, it just doesn't happen that way, but that's the goal, right? I've been doing it 14 years or 15 years now. I worked at Interscope before that for 10. And the goal at Interscope, doing the Eminem and the Dre's and the 50 Cents and the Weezers and the Blinks and the Gwens, was just to break them all. And so I kind of went into management that way, but obviously with indie artists, which is more my taste. Just start from the beginning and go.
Perfect. And what's kind of been for you the differentiating factor between managing those indie and alternative artists versus more mainstream acts?
I think as far as artistic integrity and lack of radio to break them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the touring's the same aside from $1 million production stages and, 20 semis, it's just not that scale.
Right.
But a couple of my bands are on majors. And they're, one of them is called the War on Drugs, and they're on a label with Migos and Cardi B and
Right.
Bruno Mars. And, the approach to those projects are just totally different. I just take an indie aesthetic to all of it. I have bands on Warp, I have bands on 4AD. I mean, to me, it's all the same as far as marketing is concerned.
Right.
It's what the bands want to do and following their muse.
Right. Asa, actually, I'm a massive Davido fan, and his music is always playing in Jamaica. So I was just wondering, in terms of marketing an artist like Davido, what's the difference when you push him internationally versus back in Nigeria? Is it the same approach, or do you have a different way of doing things?
It varies per market, obviously, because like Nigeria's home.
Mm-hmm.
So there's less competition in the sense where like you're dealing with mainly Nigerian artists. When you leave Nigeria, you're another artist like America, for example, like America is like the biggest market. You're dealing with American artists, Latin American artists, Spanish artists, English artists, Jamaican artists. So it varies with each market. Like what we do in Nigeria is completely different from what we do here.
Right.
Yeah.
I
So
definitely get it.
yeah, I mean places like Jamaica, like obviously in the Caribbean, Afrobeats and dancehall and reggae all sync in together, so it's easier. And then obviously collaboration, like building. What we've done is in the Caribbean, we've built a little team, a little network of our own, which helps us with stuff out there. We shot a few videos in the Caribbean, so which really helped with the reception of music. We shot a video in Barbados in 2018, and we went back in 2017, and we went back to perform in 2019, and that was the biggest record we had there. And to us, we were like, whoa.
Yeah. And even speaking on that, in terms of those kind of smaller markets, Barbados, St. Kitts, Jamaica, how much do you rely from a data standpoint and numbers to know that the fan base is definitely there, that when you go there, you're going to sell out a show?
I mean, it's funny because you can sit, one thing I've learned over the years is like you can sit back and look at an app and look at numbers. But the thing is, in places like Africa and the Caribbean, like not everyone has access to a phone with internet.
Mm-hmm.
So you can sit on your laptop and be like, oh, my song, this is the most popping song in Jamaica. And then you go there and it's a completely different song.
Right.
I remember the first time we got booked to go to Suriname in, I think, like 2017.
Mm-hmm.
When I mentioned to David, I was like, yo, we're going to Suriname. And David was like, where the hell is that? And luckily for me, because Suriname is a Dutch colony, and loads of the football players that play for the Dutch team are actually originally from Suriname. So I knew what Suriname was. So I went back on the stats and I was looking, I was like, how come? And it made no sense on the numbers. I was like, why are they paying us this much to do a show for 10,000 people? And to us, it was like, wow, this doesn't make sense. But we were doing it off an Amsterdam show. So there was a direct flight to Suriname. So we're like, you know what, let's do it. It's a new place, let's go. And we got there, and songs we have just put out, like, I think we had just put out the lead single for the last album.
Mm-hmm.
And people there knew all the words to the songs. And I was like, whoa. It was crazy because I remember our DJ going up before and I was like, listen, play like 7 random Afrobeat records. Let's see where we stand.
Yeah.
And he was playing the Wiz Kids, the Ricardo Banks, the Mr. Easy, and they knew everything. So I was like, we're good. Listen,
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, all three of you have had like very inspiring careers, especially for a lot of us who are about to enter into the industry ourselves. I kind of just wanted to open up to more general questions for all of you to answer. We can start with Amy, so just looking at how quickly the industry moves and songs kind of come and go at such a rapid rate, I feel the attention span of fans have been getting smaller. How do you approach to make your single for your artist stick around in the long term?
That would be a really good question probably for everybody else, because I think as I mentioned, my bands weren't built on radio, so they're not single
Right.
bands. I don't know that you'd name a single. When you go see the War on Drugs, they're like 5 records deep now. You're like, what are they going to play? And people collect the playlists and talk about it online. It's definitely about a live experience. Grizzly Bear is the same
Right.
way, multiple albums. There's one song that would be considered, I guess, a single, but when you're talking about hit radio like Hot AC or pop or top 40, none of my bands have ever been in that world. So mine is more of a long-term thing. I mean, I've been with all my bands, oh God, for so many years, and we just grow it every year. My newest band is a band called Dead out of Chicago, and it's kind of the same approach, even in 2021, 22, going into it. It's just lots of touring, lots of great albums, focus on the albums.
Yeah, I definitely get that. And Moody, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I haven't thought about this until you brought it up, but I think it's it's like a double-edged sword. Sure, like people have shorter attention spans, but also they have very focused short attention spans. So like in the past, you would never blow up off one verse in your song. You know what I'm saying? Like just a little line wouldn't blow you up, but today you can't. Like it's literally a 12-second snippet that blows you up because you said a certain word, and then all of a sudden there's 100,000 videos, everyone using that line in their song. So I don't think you'd really just rely on how like the composition of a record is. And at the end of the day, I mean, that's our job. Like it's our job to figure out how to push the record. So I wouldn't really tell an artist what to do, but I would be like, you know, hey, I'll give advice, but you don't have to listen to me. You do whatever you got to do, and it's on me to figure out how to roll it out. So yeah, I think in general, consumer behavior has changed where people just prefer to listen to singles or prefer to listen to, because they have the option to skip, which, but you know, is a relatively new thing. If it doesn't catches your attention, you just go to the next one, and all the DSP's algorithms are based on skip rates, and so they want to program music to you that you won't skip. But most artists are like, hey, you know, skip my record if you want. It's not for you. So I wouldn't tell them what to do.
Thank you. And Asa, if you want to go next.
Completely with Moody. Completely, like, because at the end of the day with these things is like I witnessed this so many times when I'll be like, yo, I have this amazing idea. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? And then the artist is like, yeah, whatever. And it goes in one ear and comes out the other ear. And then you just find out you basically wasted time doing all of this. And then the artist himself isn't on it and he's not pushing it or capitalizing it. So you're back at square one and you probably lost some days or lost budget. So I pretty much like to go with what the artist is comfortable with. Like I've witnessed this so many times where I'm like, yo, I have this killer rollout plan. And that's just like, yeah, whatever.
No, yeah, I definitely understand that as well.
I mean, sometimes they'll literally pull the rug right under you like the day before release. They'll be like, hey, I loved your idea, but the day before I changed my mind. Now figure it out.
Wow. Yeah, and Amy, you were kind of
I was going to say, those are things that don't happen in my world. None of those things. You guys should come over to my side. No, I'm kidding.
Amy, you were kind of saying your bands are heavily focused on that live aspect of things. And I think, I mean, we don't really have a choice, but the pandemic is something that must be discussed in how it's affected our industry. So how have you and your company kind of adapted your creative process for your bands?
Well, everybody applied for grants. I mean, that's the bottom line. There were tons of grants that got created almost overnight for crew and band. And, you know, the Save Our Stages Act, I did a lot of lobbying for. I was on Morning Edition. I wrote op-eds in the paper. The name changed to the Shuttered Venues Act. And then, of course, it finally got off the ground this year after, honestly, my throat is sore from a year of lobbying for it and writing letters and getting everybody involved. And there's a whole bunch of organizations that grew up out of it. NIDO and NEVA, two of the bigger ones. It finally launched in April and then it crashed immediately. And then now apparently there's reviews going on of the applications and checks going out, but everyone just, I mean, there was nothing to say except the bottom fell out. I mean, the bottom completely fell out. Bands don't have Live Nation and AEG money that they sit on for rainy days, you know, $9 billion just sitting there. They tend to be year by year and album cycle by album cycle, you know, and it does get to where everyone's, after about 2 years off of an album cycle, you kind of need to get back on to be able to pay your bills. And the timing was that was basically going to be during the pandemic for a couple of the records, and they had to just completely freeze for a full year. So it was hard, you know, but now it's coming back. I mean, everyone's just booking shows and all the festivals are announcing in the fall, and I guess we'll see. I don't think anyone has a crystal ball. Hopefully everyone's getting vaccinated.
And are you kind of in support of more live streaming shows, or do you just prefer?
No, we avoided them completely. My bands did a couple TV shows that way and felt nothing. They felt it was so flat that they'd rather wait. So none of my roster did a live stream. On my partner Asia, her band Fleet Foxes did one, and they really enjoyed it. But the rest of mine just really just sat it out. And a lot of them have shows booked for the fall. So hopefully they'll be able to play them.
Yeah.
It's been a while. They all make jokes now that they would play on Christmas morning, you know, if they had to, like whatever it takes. So yeah, I really hope that everybody stays healthy and we can play these shows.
Definitely. And for Moody, I mean, you work with so many independent artists as well. What's kind of been your way of adapting during this pandemic?
I think during this time, what became like the artists that prevailed were the ones that were able to be more transparent and kind of show their personality throughout this whole thing. The artists that kind of like, you know, like people that went on live or people that posted how they were dealing with the pandemic, or them just every day, those are the ones that still were able to connect with fans. Because at the end of the day, that's what it is. That's why you got to go to a show. You want to be closer to the artist. So if throughout this pandemic, you were showing a side of you where fans felt closer to you, they were still continuing your narrative. They were still interested. They still were part of the story. And so I think those artists, it was really easy for them to get back. Or their followers kept growing, their engagement kept going up. So when it comes down to put out a release, their monthly listeners were still going up, as opposed to ones who kind of like just sat it out and waited for it, and then had like a much bigger plan for their comeback, which is I think what Amy was saying is like they're coming up with ideas for comebacks, when shows do come back to regular, I think what I didn't expect was digital went from being like something you support on the marketing side to literally being the only thing you do on the marketing side. Like, you weren't doing billboards, you weren't doing merch, you weren't doing shows. So it's like all the marketing spend went into just digital.
Right.
Yeah.
Asa, for you, just in terms of that adapting.
I think it's a bit of both, because like at the beginning of the pandemic, when I was trying to like convince everyone, okay, we need to do some of these digital shows, we need to stay relevant, everyone was like, I'm not performing in an empty room.
Yeah.
That was literally what everyone would say. I'm not performing in an empty room. How am I supposed to perform in an empty room for 30 minutes to 10 people? I'm not doing it. And then after some time, with artists, when they don't really like something, you give them some time. They see other people are doing it. It's becoming the norm, slowly but surely. So I would say every one of the people we work with did at least one. And what it was stuff like, because obviously, like, for example, like with David still had to do stuff like Jimmy Kimmel, pre-recorded. What else did we do? We did some stuff for Coming to America, pre-recorded. And then a few paid gigs here and there. But it was all just like Moody said, it was just all about like just staying relevant. Luckily for an artist like David, his social media following is huge, and he's like always posting on his Insta story. So if David doesn't do a show for a year, like people are still living and being part of his life through like his Instagram. So it was fine. But obviously this was all just for now. Like we're still here in the back planning to hit the road once everything is back to normal. We've got shows booked all over the world. With like David, for example, it's his 10th anniversary this year. So we have like a whole campaign online and offline. So literally the minute we get let go back on road.
But you make a really good point though. Like as far as people not wanting to do live streams, it's like funny. It's like it went from promoters being like Live Nation or Insomniac to being TikTok and Twitch is the promoter. Unless they're the ones doing the show, your artist is like, nah, I don't want to do it. But if they're the promoter, you're like, okay, cool, I'll do the show.
Yeah. It was so hard. In the beginning, I'd be like, dude, this guy wants to pay you $50K to stand in front of a camera and perform 3 songs. And then people are like, nah, it just feels weird. And I'm like, you have no shows for a whole year. You might as well do it. And then later on, it became, I think funny thing is, even when the world goes back to normal, there'll still be pre-recorded shows and live stream shows. I mean, like I say to people, I feel as if Corona is a blessing in disguise because it now means like you can shoot one performance and cut up 5 different ways and use 5 different things.
Definitely. And I mean, we only have a couple minutes left, but I kind of just wanted to go around quickly to each of you. And what's one major thing that you've learned so far in your career that you'd like to share with professionals just starting in the industry?
You mind if I go? Because then I'm going to have to go.
No problem.
I have a 2-year-old running around. I'm actually driving a remote control car beneath the camera. You can't see. So ladies out there, you can do it. You can have a 2-year-old and have rock bands touring the world and do Berkeley Zooms. I would just say, you know, the best advice that was given to me was I grew up in a really small farm town in Pennsylvania, and my parents knew nothing about the music industry. And the best thing they said or did or even understood was to get to New York or LA. And I guess now you would include Nashville. And I guess depending on the genre, Atlanta, go to the city where there are jobs. Don't try to do it out of your town that maybe doesn't have any music industry. I live in New Orleans right now. There's an industry here, but it's not for indie rock. But I moved here after I was established because now I can live anywhere. But in the early days, I would say live where the work is, live where the mentors are. If we do go back to office buildings, there's a bunch of them in New York and LA that are full of record label people that can teach you something, and then you can get out of there and go live where you want.
Perfect.
Okay, and thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you for being here.
Nice to meet you, Amy.
Bye-bye.
Should I go next?
Yeah, go.
One thing I've learned is your network, man. Relationships, like that's the most important thing. Because at the end of the day, like no matter how big your roster is or how small your roster is, there's gonna be a point when you need someone's help. You need someone to put you on something. You need someone to introduce you to someone. You might not have a popping artist to get you through a door, but if you have the relationships yourself, you can always pick up a phone and be like, yo, I have this new artist I'm trying to do this for. I need to get in touch with this person. I know you know the person. I think that's the most important thing. Relationships and having a really good network.
Definitely. Yeah, Moody, you go.
I think the most important one I would say is know your audience. Like I can't stress how many times, not just developing acts, like developed acts. Like I've seen artists, I'm like, yo, I really love your music. He's like, cool, here's a folder with 65 songs. I'm like, yo, like just, you know, like just send me 3 songs. I don't need 65. You know what I'm saying? So, and if you're, you know, if you're in the marketing side and you're trying to make yourself in the industry, stop trying to get paid up front. You know what I'm saying? Same as an artist would want to do a show for free to establish themselves. If you're really good at marketing, do it for free, prove yourself, and then they'll come paying. I promise you. You do a good job, there's no management team that's going to say, no, I'm not paying you. So if you're trying to, you know, just prove yourself, know your audience, you'll be good to go. And like Asia said, network.
Definitely. Well, yeah, thank you guys so much for this time today and all the thoughts and knowledge that you've shared with us. We really appreciate it. And yeah, we'll be handing over back to our host now for the next session of INO.
All right, thanks.